crazy campaign. Even before the start of the election year, the presidential race is filled with drama. Miraculous rescue. 3 days after a giant mudslide in southern China, a survivor is rescued. Eye-catching. What was that streaking across the sky from California to Nevada Tuesday night? And stories of miracles. Visitors to Bethlehem's Milk Grotto claim the powder purchased there is miraculous. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, December 23rd, 2015. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick with your news now. A fresh round of controversy surrounding Donald Trump isn't cutting into his growing support. A brand new poll shows Trump dominating the GOP race in these final weeks of 2015. Wyatt Goolsbee is here now with the latest.
Brian, if you look at the polls, Trump seems to be pulling ahead despite all the inflammatory statements. Meanwhile, other presidential candidates are dealing with controversies of their own. Despite the new poll, Trump still has a ways to go if he wants to win the general election. Half of all voters believe the GOP is better off without him. Trump and Democratic frontrunner Hillary Clinton continue to spar. Clinton is standing by her claim that ISIS uses Trump's statements to recruit followers.
No Muslims coming to the United States, other kinds of derogatory, defamatory statements. It is playing into the hands of the violent jihadists.
She's terrible. Donald Trump is on video, and ISIS is using him on the video to recruit. And it turned out to be a lie. She's a liar.
Meanwhile, Clinton's campaign team is taking heat for an article called 7 Things Hillary Clinton Has in Common with Your Abuela, Spanish for grandmother. On Twitter, critics are using the hashtag Hispandering, with some Latino voters saying Clinton is not like my abuela. Ted Cruz is also trending on Twitter after a Washington Post political cartoon depicted Cruz's daughters as trained monkeys. In the picture, Cruz is turning a jack-in-the-box crank that makes them dance.
Please read this one, Daddy.
Okay.
The cartoon is a response to a recent campaign ad in which Cruz and his daughters spoof familiar Christmas stories. The Washington Post has retracted the cartoon, saying it's generally been the policy of our editorial section to leave children out of it. I failed to look at this cartoon before it was published. Senator Cruz says he is not happy about the cartoon's depiction of his daughters. Cruz says he knows he will be criticized, but asks the media to leave his daughters out of it. Brian?
Wyatt Goolsbee, thank you. The woman accused of driving her car into dozens of people on a sidewalk in Las Vegas Sunday makes her first court appearance. Lakeisha Holloway charged with murder after one of those victims died. A judge agreed to push back her next hearing 30 days out of concern for her mental state.
Well, she's distraught. I mean, this is tragic for everybody involved. And as the days go by and the gravity of what happened sinks in, I expect that she's going to be in a very difficult mental state.
One person died and 35 others were injured in the crash. A toddler in Holloway's car, assumed to be her daughter, was not hurt. Her attorney expects additional charges as the state continues investigating that case. Well, the weather puts a damper on holiday travel, with storms delaying flights at some airports. Severe weather takes a life in Arkansas. A tree fell on a house, killing an 18-year-old mother, trapping her 1-year-old child inside. Rescuers later pulled the toddler to safety. Parts of the Midwest and the South were under tornado watches today. This year's weather is unusually warm, so much for a white Christmas. Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. Iraqi forces fight to oust ISIS from Ramadi. An Iraqi official says they're closing in on that city's government compound. ISIS destroyed all the bridges around the city, so Iraqi forces crossed over on a new bridge just built yesterday. Iraqi forces have already pushed ISIS out of some neighborhoods, but snipers, roadside bombs, and booby-trapped buildings are slowing the Iraqi advance. A man buried under rubble for 60 hours is alive and free tonight. The migrant worker was buried by a massive landslide in southern China. He was saved because a door that trapped his foot also gave him space and breathing room under the rubble long enough to survive. More than 70 people are still missing 3 days after that landslide. Now to the Libyan coast, where the Italian Navy rescues 2 more rubber dinghies filled with migrants. They're part of a wave of more than 1 million migrants pouring into Europe this year. Refugee agencies say most of them made the dangerous journey by sea. A judge rules Utah can cut off federal funds to Planned Parenthood as the court considers Planned Parenthood's case against the state. The governor of Utah blocked the funding after undercover videos implicate Planned Parenthood in the sale of body parts from aborted babies. Planned Parenthood is suing Utah to release that money. Brian Johnston, the Western Regional Director of National Right to Life Committee, joining us. Brian, you travel to Utah a lot. Why is this ruling significant, and how much did those undercover videos have to do with it?
Well, Brian, I think the significance of those videos is they really underscore the humanity of the unborn child, and that's really the debate in the abortion issue. Is this a human being? The fact that those videos show that body parts were being sold is why the governor acted. He thought this was very inappropriate and that Planned Parenthood in Utah should not get funds through his channels.
Will this hurt Planned Parenthood? I understand the amount of federal funding is really not that much a part of their budget.
That's right. This cuts off the Medicaid portion, which flows through state government. What's significant here, obviously, as a more conservative state, is that you have state legislators now taking action. This is very significant, and it underscores our need in 2016 to elect state legislators and national legislators that will take action on behalf of the unborn child.
The National Right to Life Committee's Brian Johnston Skyping with us tonight. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
A nativity scene challenged in federal court will stay outside the courthouse in Brookville, Indiana. A judge dismissed a counter lawsuit. The parties now agree both religious and non-religious displays can remain. Jocelyn Floyd, Associate Counsel for the Thomas More Society, Skyping with us from Chicago. So the nativity scene in Franklin County, Indiana can stay along with other non-religious items. Is this really a victory for religious liberty?
Yes, it is. It's very important in the public square that people of religious faith be allowed to express themselves the same as anyone else. And what happened in Franklin County is that the Freedom for Religion Foundation tried to keep those of religious faith from expressing that faith in the public square. So now they are allowed to do that along with everyone else, and it's a victory both for religious freedom and for free speech.
This seems to be happening more and more. Is there any way we can stem this before it actually gets to that lawsuit stage?
If the local towns, counties, municipalities will go back and look at their ordinances, whatever rule they have in place regarding these public arenas and what is allowed to be displayed there, and tighten those up and get clear guidelines that everyone can look to and know these are constitutional rules, then there's no confusion up front and everything is a lot easier down the road.
Good. I'm sure people in these smaller communities are beginning to feel this pressure as they witness stories like this. How would you advise them to stay strong and firm in their beliefs?
I think the two most important things is to remember that it is constitutional to allow religion in the public square. The second part is that the government cannot show preference for one religion. So when these small towns want to support the religion of their constituents, generally these small towns are predominantly Christian and the people in the town want a Christian theme. The government needs to remember that they are opening it up to the citizens on an equal basis, and it's up to the citizens to choose whether or not to display the religious faith.
Jocelyn Floyd, thank you so much for the good work of the Thomas More Society. To you and all the folks there, Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Coming up, space debris creates a spectacular sky show over the western U.S. And we visit Bethlehem's Milk Grotto, where ancient tradition says Mary nursed the baby Jesus. A behind-the-scenes look at the making of glass Christmas ornaments. The small Mexican town of Tlapujawa is known for hand-making these decorations. Families work together. They blow the glass, they paint, and then sell the ornaments, which will hang in homes around Mexico and other parts of the world this Christmas. Thanks for joining us this Wednesday evening before Christmas. I'm Brian Patrick. A spectacular sight in the sky over Nevada catches people by surprise. A Las Vegas man captures this fireball streaking across the Tuesday night sky. The U.S. Strategic Command says it was Russian space debris re-entering the atmosphere. It could be seen from California as well. Well, it looks like NASA will not return to Mars anytime soon. NASA hoped to land a robotic spacecraft on the red planet to take measurements and take color photos, but that next mission to Mars is on hold now because of a leak in an instrument. NASA says the launch window closes March 30th and will not reopen for another 2 years. We're getting new glimpses of one of Saturn's moons. Look at this close-up of Enceladus. A NASA spacecraft made a close flyby the icy moon this weekend. These images were taken from a mere 3,100 miles away. Well, not everyone experiences the joy of the holidays. For some, this is actually a very difficult season. There is new legislation for those who suffer from mental illness to get the help they need. Indiana Representative Susan Brooks Skyping with us from Carmel near Indianapolis. And Representative Brooks, this is the holiday season. Why do you think it's important to remind all of us of mental illness and the need for mental health security?
The holidays is a wonderful time for our families to come together. And yet we don't acknowledge and really discuss much in this country the fact that 1 in 5 Americans suffer from mental illness. Whether it's bipolar disorder or serious depression, we don't really address our communities and even the country sufficiently. And so that's why I think it's important that we begin to talk about it, that we look for more treatment options for people, and that we really have this national discussion about the importance of treating mental illness.
You and others sponsor the Helping Families in Mental Health Crisis Act. Tell us about that and how it especially can help those communities that are dealing with a heroin epidemic.
I have to tell you, Congressman Tim Murphy of Pennsylvania, who is a psychologist, in fact, the Congress's only psychologist, has been working on this bill for 3 years. So I'm very proud to be supporting his efforts. And what we're trying to do is try to ensure that our mental health system does a better job allowing families who are dealing with another family member with serious mental illness to get the care and treatment that they need. Now, we know that the country also is seeing an epidemic of substance abuse, often starting with prescription drug abuse, opioids that they get addicted to. But the problem has morphed, quite frankly, Brian, to a very serious heroin epidemic. And the heroin epidemic is causing a huge number, a massive number of overdoses in the country, which is obviously resulting in deaths.
Yeah, there are so many young people dying from this abuse. So mental illness is something that people don't want to talk about very much, but you say it's very important, especially at this time of year when we're all focused on joy and family.
Well, and I think that it is something that families need to have the frank discussion about. They need to be engaged. But right now, the law doesn't allow them to be very involved in helping their loved ones get treatment. And so this law is trying to help break down those legal barriers so that treatment providers can work with families to get those with serious mental illness the treatment that they need. And that we will also try and help the medical community and ensure that they have enough substance abuse as well as mental health providers, which we do not have enough right now in the country.
Indiana Representative Susan Brooks, thank you so much. Keep us updated, and to you and yours, a blessed Christmas.
Thank you. Have a blessed Christmas to you and your viewers.
Well, Skype can be very unreliable sometimes, but great to connect with the Representative Brooks in Carmel, Indiana, near Indianapolis. With Christmas approaching, how does a Catholic presidential candidate prepare spiritually? Our political director, Lauren Ashburn, asks Rick Santorum.
Tell us what you're doing for Christmas.
No, I'm taking a little break. We've been hitting the campaign trail very, very hard, and I'm going to be running for a father and husband in chief over the next 5 days.
Are you cooking? I bet they're going to miss you.
I'll be cooking, cleaning, running kids to things, and just
regular old Joe.
Just regular old Joe for these next few days. I just think it's important that. We as a family take a break. I give the people of Iowa a break and some of these other early primary states.
And your staff.
And my staff a break. No, this is an important season for for reflection. It's an Advent time. I mean, it's the last few days of Advent for me, and just that little reflection. Going to the Sacrament of Reconciliation, and we have a special going on in our church. No more than 3 Hail Marys as a penance, so it's a good deal for me.
So you can just go in and
there,
cruise out.
I got a good special. Our priest is holding a special on confession.
I love that. I love that. Well,
it's-
you wish him a Merry Christmas, and Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Thank you very much. Same to you, Lauren, and to everybody out there.
And we're going to take a little bit of a break for Christmas too, so you'll see special programming here on EWTN tomorrow and Friday. You know, the little town of Bethlehem we sing about in the Christmas Carol is a real place. And some of the pilgrims who flock to the birthplace of Jesus also explore a small grotto nearby. Near Bethlehem's Church of the Nativity is the Milk Grotto Sanctuary. According to ancient Christian tradition, this is the place where Mary breastfed baby Jesus. More intimate than the Basilica of the Nativity, the grotto is a place for meditation and prayer. For some faithful, it's also a place where miracles happen.
This is a unique sanctuary place having to do with the Holy Family, where we have miracles. You can visit 15 churches around the Holy Land. You're not going to see this. You won't see so many thousands of women having babies and cancer cures. So it's a special place.
A Christian legend says that a drop of Mary's milk spilled on the floor, turning the grotto's walls white. Since then, powder scratched from the grotto's walls, together with a prayer to Mary, is said to allow couples with infertility problems to have babies.
Every 2 days I receive a testimony from somewhere around the world to tell us that before praying this devotion, they could not conceive children. So they write in the letters, we had a miracle because 20 years we took medicine, we had operations, I couldn't be a mother, we couldn't have a family.
The church normally, officially, does not say anything regarding these things, in the sense that when people express their faith in a sincere way, the church is, let's say, neutral in front of this thing. It does not condemn it and does not approve it, because obviously it's not wrong. There's nothing wrong being done there.
By the way, the only way to purchase that powder from the Milk Grotto is to actually go there. It cannot be sent through the mail. In fact, mail requests sent to the grotto will go unopened. Up next, near the traditional birthplace of Jesus, a monastery makes wine similar to that produced in the time of Christ. And the Nativity depicted in sacred art on The Beauty of Faith with Dr. Jem Sullivan.
My family was going to the Mass, and we were singing those Christmas carols, and that's probably my best memory as a kid, and for now.
One of the many Christmas memories from people outside Budapest's St. Stephen's Basilica. The square there is transformed into a Christmas market every year. Thanks for joining us this evening, and from all of us to all of you, we wish you a Merry Christmas, a blessed Christmas. And near the place where Jesus was born, a monastery makes wine similar to wine produced in the time of Christ. Monks work diligently to make sure the wine is as pure as it was 2,000 years ago. Researchers trace the genetic vine to uncover which grapes are native to the Holy Land. They actually test ancient seeds preserved in archaeological digs.
When a archaeological finding of seeds occurs, 99% of the times it's burned. The seeds are actually charred. This is the reason that they were preserved.
Winemakers see tremendous marketing potential with a wine from biblical times being bottled once again. Pope Francis will celebrate the Jubilee of Mercy for families this coming Sunday on the Feast of the Holy Family. He is asking all of us to find joy in this Jubilee of joy of rediscovering and rendering fruitful God's gift of mercy. And on this day before Christmas Eve, we contemplate the Nativity in sacred art on The Beauty of Faith. Dr. Jem Sullivan, the author of The Beauty of Faith, former guide at the National Gallery of Art, is with us, and the nativity scene has made its way through art for centuries. Let's look at a piece from the 14th century.
Yes, Brian. You know, this beautiful panel from the National Gallery of Art is the work of Duccio di Buoninsegna. He was one of the most talented artists working in Siena in the early 14th century. And in this composition, we see the largest figure is Mary, the Mother of God, and she is reclining as she looks lovingly at her newborn son. Both mother and child are enclosed in this stable. It is bare, cold, a simple stable, and perhaps they are warmed simply by the breath of the animals who are watching over the scene. We see St. Joseph on the side, close to them. He is pondering the great mystery of the incarnation that is unfolding before him. And on the rooftop are angels, a crowd of angels, some of them giving glory to God. Others are simply leaning over eagerly to catch a glimpse of the baby Jesus. Just a wonderful scene.
Everybody wants to see angels, or babies, even the angels.
Correct,
Yeah,
correct. They're
that's
peering
really
over.
pretty. So we've got prophets, though, on the side wings there.
That's right, two prophets, Ezekiel on the right, with his scroll announcing the coming Messiah, and on the left is Isaiah with his famous passage, "The virgins shall conceive and bear a son, and he shall be called Emmanuel." You know, God from all eternity desired to reconcile humanity to himself, and this is the time of grace when Christ, our Savior, is born.
And then a beautiful, colorful image from Lorenzo Lotto.
That's right. This is from Lorenzo Lotto, a Venetian artist, and we have this lovely image of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, the Holy Family. And you know, we wonder at this time of Christmas, when we receive the greatest of gifts in the Incarnation, what is our most fitting response to this gift of God? And Mary and Joseph show us an answer to that, because they're kneeling in front of the baby Jesus in thanksgiving, adoration, worship. They're showing us what should be our response to this great gift of the Incarnation as we give thanks and praise to God for the gift of his Son.
And finally, a mosaic constructed at the St. John Paul II National Shrine.
That's right. We have this beautiful, stunning mosaic from the St. John Paul II National Shrine's main church, the Redemptor Hominis, or Redeemer of Man Church. The shrine is a place of pilgrimage, prayer, of veneration of the relics of one of the greatest saints of our time, St. John Paul II, the Pope of the family. In this scene, we see that God enters into the human condition by coming into a family, the most basic human community of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. So we see Mary cradling the head of the baby Jesus as she looks lovingly at St. Joseph. And both of them, again, surrounded by these animals, all of creation is now being reconciled to God. It's just a beautiful way in which this mosaic, which is part of a breathtaking cycle of mosaics completed by Father Marco Ivan Rupnik, whose work decorates shrines all over the world.
Thank you for these beautiful Christmas cards, and Merry Christmas, Dr. Jem Sullivan.
Same to you, Brian.
Thank you. Jem will be back with us on New Year's Day, which of course as Catholics we celebrate as the Solemnity of Mary, the Mother of God, looking at some of the art that depicts Mary as the Mother of Jesus. You will see special Christmas programming tomorrow and Friday on EWTN, celebrating Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I'm Brian Patrick. We wish a blessed Christmas from our family to yours, our EWTN family all over the world, and especially our EWTN News Nightly family right here in D.C. We leave you with a living Christmas card, this beautiful reenactment of the Nativity in a cave in Slovenia, and to all, a good night.